okay to talk about things that may be a bit stigmatizing for other people around, especially around mental health. There's still that whole we can't talk about it stuff. It's men. I think even more so now since all COVID and stuff. It's affected a lot more than just men. But men still have that kind of thing. That like I just this evening, for example, there's somebody who's gone missing. And here in Ireland, that we have our experiences of life and our journeys that are real. And the real journeys of me and you having a conversation like we had a conversation 6 years ago should be a conversation that happens every day, day in, day in, day in. Yes, and it's great to have footballers and Reading to do what they do and talk. Just make own Ireland and the youngest. They work, Educate Together is a school over here that they're both in. So they basically believe in everything and anything. It's not brought up in the whole Catholic religion schools here. So I totally get that, and I hope I was being offensive because I wasn't.
No, not at all.
We encourage our girls to just be themselves and to support others as the way that they are, and that's.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Mark Talks Men's Health. In this episode, we're going to sit down with Johnny Hunt, a gentleman who I interviewed on my football channel many years ago. I think during lockdown, there was a time where we were interviewing Reading fans about their lives, about why they supported the football club, and all of that in between. In today's episode, it's a little bit different. We are going to touch on Reading. This is filmed a few hours after the Reading loss to Lincoln, but we're going to touch on that a little bit. His little that he does a lot of advocating for men's mental health. He's done as well, talking Royals, plus his life that he lives in Ireland as well. So we are going to be discussing all of that. If you haven't already, make sure to hit the like, hit the subscribe. We get very personal in this episode, so make sure that you stick around and give this a lot of support towards Johnny. But without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Mark Talks Men's Health. Today, we have got a beautiful guest, but before we introduce this absolute wonderful human being, I just want to give you a quick heads up as well. There will be topics of discussion that may affect some of you. If it does affect you and you find uncomfortable listening to this, then please reach out to one of us. We may be able to help you. Not only that, if you just want to turn us down and have us on in the background while you do stuff, that's absolutely fine as well. What we will also say is where there will be discussions that may feel personal and it may hit you a certain way, but there is also things out there that can help you. There is my DMs are always open to anyone if there's any questions you want to ask, and there are other people out there that can help you as well. We do a little disclaimer here on the niche channel now before we go any further, but I just want to say you are not alone. We are all in this together. And talking about all in this together, a gentleman of mine, we were very passionate, and he was on the show, like I said earlier on. I have my other channel, Mark Talks Football. During lockdown, I was interviewing. I did a short series where I got different Reading fans to come on and talk about their love for Reading Football Club, why they loved it, a bit about themselves, all of that type of thing. That was about 6 years ago, I think it was around about then.
Yeah.
We did all of that, but this gentleman here has been a massive advocate for men's mental health in the Reading area, not only for the Reading area, for the Reading fans, and not only that, for himself as well. He's done some charity events that we will be discussing around men's mental health as well. But Johnny, I've got one question, and this is the same question I ask every single guest. And it's a tough question, and it's not an easy one to start with. So I do apologize in advance. But to you, what makes a good man?
Kindness and just being open. I think for other men, it's about being open about who we are and the issues that we face in life, and making it okay to talk about things that may be a bit stigmatizing for other people around, especially around mental health. There's still that whole you can't talk about it stuff. It's men. I think even more so now since all COVID and stuff. It's affected a lot more than just men. But men still have that kind of thing. Like I just this evening, for example, there's somebody who's gone missing, and here in Ireland, that people know and hasn't been seen for 5 days, and he's the same age as me, and you kind of going like, the pressures of life and the things that are happening in the world, it just affects so many, and if we have to find ways of opening up channels to make conversation. Like we had that conversation 6 years ago, the same conversation should be had every day, and like when none of us are perfect, it's not like we sit here and preach to others about what we do, and it's about saying, yeah, life's shite sometimes, and life's tough, and life's difficult, and I'm struggling and you're struggling, and it's so good to say that, but we don't know what goes on inside this. That's the scary part, I think, for people, is we could all sit and look at people on, and you see it with celebrities, you see it with other people. What we present isn't what's in there. And I probably bore people to death talking about it, but I'm there, I've been there, and I'm being a Reading fan, if it helps other people, if it helps one person, if what we do tonight helps one person get support and help, then it's so worth it. That's the message, really.
Question is for you. Growing up, did you have that male figure around you? Was there someone there around you during you growing up to get to where you are now, to becoming this advocate, being this person that has done a lot for men's mental health around, as we know, around our area? Because as we know, we're both Reading fans. We're both wearing a Reading shirt, and we both have been through the times during COVID and what happened recently with the football club that has affected us both. But for you, growing up, was there that father figure there for you?
I had my father, but he wasn't probably the shining light that people would want. My dad was he grew up in Reading. He spent a lot of times going out with Robin Friday and different people like that. But my dad was unfortunately an alcoholic, and also a very intelligent man. He ran managing director of oil companies, but probably in conversations I had, he went missing for 15 years and lived on the streets and stuff, from when I was a teenager, probably back in 1985. Like my parents got divorced in 1980, which is unheard of in England. But my mum, bless her, they're both passed now. They're both gone. My mum died a couple of years ago. It was very, very hard. It's very, very but Dad was, geez, back in those days, you can go for a few pints and drive home, and that's what would happen. And it's what it is. Like when Dad passed away 25 years ago now, from cancer, from someone that was a high flyer. He was a managing director for Brown and Root, which is a big American oil company. So we had a very bipolar life, traveling around, living in so many different places. Scotland, Norway. We had to leave Norway because my dad basically he got done for drink driving, so he either went to jail or we left the country, so we had to leave the country. These things that happened, and then it affected my mum's mental health. It affected me and my brother's mental health. As youngsters growing up in the 80s, which is for different generations, is a different world, but it's hard. It impacted it, like when you've had a distressing childhood, it impacts on you growing up. I tried to do my best for me. I've got two young girls, 5 and 13, but the impact, and in a different era, that's the thing. When we didn't have the supports back in those days. My dad, bless him, was a typical, he's born in Wales and loved his rugby and loved his beers and whatever, but he probably had, I had a conversation with him when I met up with him, after the time he'd not been seen, and basically he was like sort of an undiagnosed bipolar person, but he wouldn't have any understanding of, you know, what he said to me was he'd do something, he'd get bored, and then move on to something else. And my dad was, you know, unfortunately didn't run into the genes wise, but my dad was I think he had the IQ immense kind of level of, you know, that way. And then, you know, then I used to see him on the streets in Bournemouth when I was living in England, and you know, he'd be drinking at 7 o'clock in the morning, and you know, it was a sad life in the end, and a sad world. But he was also very smart. Even at that stage, he'd be able to a nursing home down in Boscombe, I think it was. They would take him off the streets and clean him up, sort him out, and he'd cut the books for them, accountancy wise, because he was very clever. So yeah, like it did impact, not positively, or has it made me what I am now? I don't know. Do I try to be better for my family? Yes, possibly, but you know, we're in a very different world to where I grew up in, and you know, my mum had to drag us up, the three of us, me and my two older brothers, up, and as a single parent, and you know, it was very hard back then. Like, you know, we were meal ticket kids, as we called us. You know, I think it was 69p. We'd have, you know, be in the meal ticket queue. But what it does, it makes you, you know, tough, and you learn from it, and you appreciate things in life, and you do your best, and you know, like it. Why am I like I am now? I don't know. Why do I want to make a difference now? Yeah, I'm a nurse and I do what I do, but those things, and then having my own mental health stuff when I was younger, gives you a great understanding and empathy of other people, and you appreciate that people are struggling. So if you can't go and, you know, do something to help someone else in life, then what's the point in being here? That's basically my world.
So, what inspired you to become a nurse then? We're going to talk about nursing and your profession now, and we'll get back into that a little bit later. But what inspired you to do that? What was the thing that triggered you in your brain and go, this is something that I see a career in, or this is something different than the normal, but this is something I want to do? What was that for you?
Well, I wanted to be, believe it or not, obviously, I wanted to be a professional footballer or a professional cricketer back in the day. My footballing career ended at Yeovil Town back in the non-league days. I joke with people that John McGinley took over in goal for me one day at the old Hewish ground. He said, "Oh, wee man, get out of goal." And like, you know, obviously John McGinley went on to play for Bolton. I think we were about 5-0 goals down at half time because the short ass me in goal was rubbish. But I loved being a goalkeeper, and then, you know, obviously there's guys like Alan Pardew were there at the times, and so then I went to Australia when I was 18 for a working holiday, because basically I knew I couldn't do, in those days, blokes jobs, mechanics and stuff like that. I'm not that clever, and not that whatever. What I'm good at is looking after people. So I went to Australia for a working holiday back in 1990, came back, and I worked in a frozen food factory. And if you've ever done chicken curries with a hangover at 6 o'clock in the morning in a factory, yeah, you know, you need to maybe move on. So I saw an advert in the Mail on Sunday, I think it was, about nursing. So I applied to be a nurse. Back in those days, you could do 4 GCSEs, C and above, to become a nurse. Now it's all stupid grades. But I ended up working in my student nursing days were in an institution called Leavesden Hospital in Watford, or Abbots Langley as it was, where Jack the Ripper is actually buried. Now that's the link of it, but it was like, it was a prison. They actually used the grounds, I think, for Porridge, the TV series.
Mm-hmm.
And the outside, I think, of because it looked like a prison, even though it wasn't, but it was a Victorian institute. And I went, okay, this is not what they sold in the magazine. You know, it's 40 people in a room, and so like I wanted to work with people with intellectual disabilities, learning disabilities, whatever you want to call the terminology, because it keeps changing. But unfortunately, after 6 months of starting my training, I got glandular fever, and then ended up with really bad eating disorder triggered by that. I had to give up my training and came back to, well, I was living in Yeovil. Well, my mum was living in Yeovil at the time, to try and get well. I wasn't well. I wasn't well for probably 2.5 years. Well, I wasn't well for a long time, but I was so obsessed with, and you have to be careful. I don't want to trigger anyone around anorexia and bulimia, but one of the things I used to do is just go and weigh myself obsessively every day. And then it was realization that basically the next step was ended up in psychiatric hospital. So I went, oh, I can't do that. I've still got enough about me so I leave. That's a bipolar head. When things don't work, we move on, we change direction, we change lives. So I went back home, then kind of went into the other side of eating disorder world, which is it's bulimia, where my mum hadn't had a clue, bless her, God rest her soul. So the pressure of then having to eat in front of people, when you can hide for that long, but now you're having to do this publicly or in front of people, you go to a different level. And then I started my nursing training again. I think it was about 8 months later. I lied about my mental health. I lied about what was going on because I knew that that's what I needed to do to survive and get through. And I survived and got through my nursing training back in 93 to 96, the Graham Taylor years, the lost playoff final years, and all those kind of things, without being very well. And I wasn't very well for a long time after that. And somebody with experience of eating disorder, also bipolar, is the other, buy one get one free diagnosis wise, you kind of, you're scared of losing your job, especially in caring well. No, if people that are watching this will remember the story of Beverly Allett. She was a nurse who killed young children. I don't want to, again, it's not triggering thing. It's a story that happened in the early 90s, and she ended up with diagnosis of Munchausen's by proxy. So that was going on when I was like, how the hell can I actually talk about my mental health illnesses and stuff and different things, when also one of my colleagues who are suffering from anorexia as well was really struggling. How can we talk about our journeys when the view of nurses, like, especially in the tabloid media those days, of being psycho and whatever else, when you're supposed to be in the caring profession, it impacts on and how you can be for yourself. So yeah, but it's a different world 32 years later, 33 years later. Things are better, but they're not perfect. But that's, I got to a point about 8 years ago where I don't care if I'm not a nurse anymore. I love looking after people. I've been, I've changed systems, I've changed organizations, I've done stuff that's, it's not me. It's just my job. It's a nurse. It's nice to, for people with intellectual disabilities or mental health issues, to be able to relate to and change and make a difference. And, I'm very proud of that. But then there's a point where now it's just a job because I'm done with it. I'm 53 or whatever. So I went out into another world of making a difference mental health wise, and that's something that gives me the same buzz that nursing used to give me. And when I had days I had hair in the old days, it was an enjoyable career.
So for you, listening to all of that, you've been through so much over the past time, talking about with the bipolar and the eating disorders and everything. What was the triggering point for you? Because everyone has a triggering point that goes, now I need help. And I'll give you a story. And it was when I first had my first mental health breakdown. I had serious anxiety and depression. I couldn't leave the house. I wouldn't speak to people. I would lock myself in a room. I would have a routine of doing the same thing. If that routine was broken by a couple of minutes, I lost my temper. I had the worst temper. People didn't want to be near me. People didn't want to be around me. I pushed everyone away. Somehow my wife now, at the time, was my partner. It was my fiance. stuck around with me. And it was one day, I do not know what triggered it, still to this day. And none of my family can work out what it was, but I punched a hole in a door. And it's one of the wooden doors, not like a front door, but a wooden door. And I punched my hand square through it.
Yeah.
I still don't know why. And then I just flopped to the floor, crawled up in a ball, and I turned around and said, I need help. And I need it now. That was my trigger point of when I knew I needed help. That hand through the door somehow triggered my brain going, oh, you should be doing this. What was it for you when you went to go and find the diagnostics for the eating disorder, the bipolar, and the career change? What was that trigger for you to go, things have got too far now, something has to change?
Man, like that I know, 'cause I remember, I know you've talked about your experiences, and that's huge for you as a breakthrough moment. I think for me, I didn't have one for a long time, if I'm being completely honest, because I'm a bit older than yourself, and no offense, like I was growing up in the 90s as a nurse, and going through lots of different things and lots of different experiences. So I hid. That's why I guess, like, my journey was I kept people at arm's length. There's one person who's very close to me as a friend, as a student nurse back in 1993, and we're like that. We've been friends ever since. We've been through our own stuff. We shared our own stories and went through that. And but then I didn't really, because the bipolar head of someone like me, and we're all different, and so I lived all over the place. I think I've moved 40 odd times. I lived in Australia for 8 years before I came to Ireland in 2012. Now I'm obviously settled and got a loving partner and kids and stuff like that. I didn't have a moment. There's different experiences, if I can kind of explain. Like there's being a family, there's, as being a dad, there's being this, and there's being that, and there's being you. There's obviously Reading has always been my go-to thing for my escape from life wherever I lived in the world. The moment when I went, I don't care anymore, was when in 2018, myself, Lee Adams, and Martin Sims did our first walk together from Reading to Fulham, for Men's Walk and Talk Mental Health, which Lee ran. And we'd never met each other before, but Lee had put out on, I think they'd done a walk to Reading from Fulham the start of the season, just before, unfortunately, we signed Sonia Luco from memory. And he challenged Reading fans to do the walk, and I was like, geez, I'll have a bit of that. Like I've never done any stuff like that, and I went, yeah, like I can't let Fulham fans beat us. And so it was like that, what I'd given to nursing and caring as a person, and I despite all my mental health stuff and things that I'd done and been through, the empathy and the understanding and the caring that I give back from being there myself. And if you can't care for others unless you've been there yourself, from different experiences. Yeah, you can learn stuff in textbooks and whatever, but unless you've actually been there yourself, you don't know what it's like. So unless you put someone else in, especially with folks with learning disabilities, it's a very difficult, with communication and different things. But this walk, I was like, yeah, I'll go for that. So we raised, I don't think we raised probably about 12 grand for Calm, campaign against living miserably over there. But it was like, it was a real eye opener. We went to the Majayski at the time, some good friends I met there, and we walked through the night, and it was an 18-hour walk, and it was horrible. It was raining. It was miserable. It was everything that indicates what it's like to have. It's just a brief moment of what it's like to have mental health issues when you're that miserably wet, cold, and horrible, and in the middle of the night, and you're struggling. And the three of us sat in a bus shelter in Slough and went, what the are we doing? And it was like, yeah, like, you know, in Slough, you know what Slough's a shithole. So it was like that. And that then triggered for me a whole new journey, if you like, to be honest. I actually really enjoy doing this. Gives me the buzz that nursing gave me for the like 20 odd years. It's given me this passion back of I can make a difference and do something to help others. And I yeah, like I'll be not egotistical, but it gives me a buzz to help other people. Like it's nice. I could sit here and go, oh, I could do this for myself, but it's nice if I use my own experiences, and my own experiences are mine than no one else's. But if it helps other people, if it helps a conversation, if it helps raise money, if it helps people talk about mental health, it helps one person like this conversation now. Why not? Why not? Why do you have to be so sort of self-important? That's, I think, for me.
So we're during the time of doing the walk. Let's talk about that walk. And I presume, as you were saying, it was very much that inspired a yearly outfit. I think at one point that it was every year or any time we play Fulham away, it was a campaign, and more people were getting involved in that, and a lot of more people started to do it. So for you, you said that when you were doing that walk, you sort of went through the emotions. What was the toughest emotion during that first walk? Apart from the physical side of it, because we know that's probably going to be number one. Doing an 18-hour walk, I struggle to do barely 20 minutes. But doing an 18-minute walk, 18 hours, sorry, walk, is there something that stood out to you during that walk that you went, I needed that? That was something I needed.
Well, the thing I didn't need to go and see us lose 1-0 at the end was, you know,
that wasn't needed.
That wasn't needed. No, but I think, but what it is about connection, and I think although the 3 Fulham walks, especially to start off with, like we had so many more people join, and what it starts a conversation. Like, you know, if you're walking 18 hours, you can run out of conversation very quickly. So having a conversation around mental health and about our experiences is so natural when you're doing that, because we're there for a reason. We're there for you know, to talk or to walk about men's mental health, but it isn't just men's. I know it's men's, but it's not. It's about everyone. And we've had females join us and whatever. It's about conversation. And so when you're doing that, it's just a really good, safe place. Like, you know, we see all that, you know, there's so many mental health communication groups out there now that do catch ups. Like it's kind of the buzz thing now. It's almost like having podcasts, isn't it? It's like the new fashion is to have mental health support groups. But what it was a very, very personal thing, because we you know, Martin, you know, Martin's a legend. Martin's such a good friend of mine now, and Lee, you know, we don't see each other as often because he's over in England as a Fulham fan. But that really started up something great for the football community, for us. That I think the best thing was, I think it's the 3rd walk, we came back from Fulham to Reading, even though we got battered about 5-0. The amount of young people that joined the walk. We had about 15. So we started with 3 and ended probably, I think, with 15. Sorry, no, 15 with the second one. And then we did the one back to Fulham for the New Year's Day game when Charlie Adams scored the winner. And we had like 10 of us there. And like, there's a guy called Jamie Amber, who I think you probably would know as well. And Jamie's an absolute legend. He has cerebral palsy, and he walks insane. So whatever I'm thinking or whatever I'm feeling, he's just unreal. But all the people that have been in the walks, there's that common bond. Like, you know, we haven't done any for a while because of life and living over here. And the last one we did was me and Sean and Charlie and Jamie went to Bournemouth to Reading. Sorry, Reading to Bournemouth. The game when Incy scored the equaliser for the 1-1 game.
Oh, it was a midweek game, if I'm right.
Yeah, that was 100 kilometers or something ridiculous, like 24 hours. That was insane. I was actually hallucinating on the walk, but it was insane fun and challenging. But these guys, it's not a competition. It's about people doing what we do to make conversation, to make things better. And I'm an old dinosaur, so the younger people can do stuff like that, especially like Charlie, who's brilliant, Jamie's brilliant, Sean. It's making a conversation. It's not about me, and it's not about mental health. It's about talking, and talking helps so many people.
So we're going to stay on that with talking, because I want to give you some statistics if my mouth decides that it wants to function properly. We're going to talk about Ireland first, because as you're over there at the moment, in the 2020 there were 504 suicide deaths in Ireland, with 72.6% of them male. Suicide was the leading cause of death for ages 15 to 34. Male suicide rates peaked among young men, especially 20 to 24, with rates of up to 30 per 100,000 population. Official figures likely underestimate male suicide by 20 to 25% due to stricter standards for certifying a death as suicide. According to a 2024 Movember survey, over 1/3 of Irish men report struggling with mental health, and 25% of younger men say they often feel lonely. Over half in the west of Ireland feel uncomfortable talking about it. A workplace well-being survey, which was done in November 2024, found that among Irish employees, 50% report that living with chronic mental health conditions. Men are more vulnerable to addiction-related mental health problems. And lastly, for Ireland, a mental health survey of League of Ireland footballers found that 63% of respondents reported at least one symptom of common mental disorder, with especially high vulnerability among part-time players and goalkeepers. When you hear the statistics about Ireland and going through it here, I remember when I was writing this and I was doing it, I was shocked at the amount that we're going to not compare it, because I think that's the wrong word to say, but we're also going to talk about the United Kingdom as well in a minute. But I want to get your first reaction to hearing those statistics.
Oh, I know myself. Like, I'm an ambassador over here for a mental health charity called Shine, which is, they do the hard yards. They don't get the credit for what they do because they're not the big ones. They don't get all the money and the glory. But I know I did a suicide first aid training course not so long ago, and like, to hear the ages of people that have lost their life by suicide, so young to so old, is actually quite frightening. But there's a like everywhere, there's culture stuff. Like in Ireland, there's a big issue with the farming community for suicide, because people are so isolated, and like, the pressures of life now, as with money and everything that goes on, and culturally, like, no one's perfect, but Ireland is kind of a don't talk culture at times, and it's not a sweeping statement. I don't mean like that. But there's still kind of stigma around different things here, as there is in England for different things. But the frustrating part for me is that everyone sticks their head in the sands, whether it's UK, Ireland, Australia. Australia's actually better, I have to be honest. They're very different culture and mindset over there. But it makes things so difficult for people that you'd rather not do something than help. Like the conversations need to be everyday stuff like this. Mainstream TV over COVID was like, they published the facts around how many people have been infected. Blah, blah. If you put that about mental health and about how many people have they've lost their lives. I'd be very careful in the wording of that, because around suicide's a very personal thing. If you put that up there and people started watching it going, what the heck's going on? Why aren't we making a difference? People would actually start to listen. But it's in that too hard basket. You get there's people that use mental health for fame and glory. I hate to say it. You see the celebrities come out and you kind of go like, that's not real. Like you suffered from depression, whatever. Look at the long-term survivors and people, and that's what Shine do. They look at the people that have lived a journey for a long time, like you've been through it, Mark, and I'm sure you know loads of people over there that have done the same. They're the real people. They're the real ones. We don't have $1 million sitting in the bank account. We don't have whatever. We have our experiences of life and our journeys that are real. And the real journeys of me and you having a conversation like we had a conversation 6 years ago should be a conversation that happens every day, day in, day in, day in. Yes, and it's great to have footballers and Reading to do what they do and talk. Just make conversation and make it normal. But there's this whole thing that it's almost like, nah, we won't unless it's a sell thing for someone to go, oh, look, we can make some marketing out of someone's journey. And I think to me that's abusive. It's like it shouldn't be like that. We if you look at 1 in 4 in a crowd of people, you look at a football crowd, like 12,000 people at a football match could have a mental health issue. Is it recognized? Mind and all the big charities wheel out all the usual kind of, aren't we great? We're doing our day for awareness. But it's not grassroots. It's not real. It's just publicity, and that annoys me. That really annoys me. And I'm not the person that's going to change that. I've seen it through different avenues that I've linked into. But the celebrities come out and they do their walks and their whatever. And the thing that the walks that we do with the lads are the real stuff. But it doesn't get there's some really good people out there. The 3 dads that lost their girls by suicide do some great stuff. I know so many other people do great stuff. Yeah, I get very annoyed by it because the people that do the real stuff don't get the credit. So I'll leave it there.
Okay then, so before we get into the UK mental health, let's do the UK mental health, because there's a question I'm going to follow up from this, and I want to get your honest opinion from this. Is in 2023 there were 7,055 deaths by suicide in the UK, with about 75% of those deaths being men, making suicide the biggest killer of men under 50. On average, that's 19 men per day dying by suicide. About 12.5% of men in the UK have chronically diagnosed common mental health disorder, e.g., anxiety, depression, versus 17% overall. Women remain more likely to be diagnosed. Only 36% of NHS talking therapy referrals are men. About 40% of men have never spoken to anyone about their mental health, and even though 77% report having experienced symptoms like anxiety, stress, or depression. Leading pressure contribution to men's mental illness, work 32%, finance 31%, and health concerns 23%. 76% of suicides are men, and male suicide rate are at the highest in the 40 to 49 age group. 87% of rough sleepers and 73% of adults who go missing are male. Men are nearly 3 times more likely than women to develop alcohol dependency and more likely to misuse drug or criminally involved. Men are more likely to detained under mental health law than women. When you hear those type of stats, and we talk about Ireland as well, and you talk about that you get upset or you'll get annoyed by certain things of the way that certain people depict men's mental health. If you were in charge, let's say I've given you unlimited money, right? I've now become the wealthiest man of all time, right? I've come up to you and I've gone, right, here's unlimited amount of money. I want you to change, not England, your area or island, shall we say, because that's where you're spaced right now.
Yeah, I think it's the world.
I want you to, just at this moment, I want you to do just concentrate on one part, and then we can then expand it to the world. But concentrate on Ireland first. If you were in charge of doing that, unlimited money, what are the first 3 things that you would do to try and help men in that area now?
Make things better. You basically have to make services better. You have to have you like if you're struggling with your mental health, you cannot wait for a 3 month, 6 month, 9 month, 12-month appointment. End of. Like this is the problem, and I think it's the same in the UK. I know that from Number 5 charity that in Reading. My mental health, your mental health can't wait to get better in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. But that's the waiting list. That's where the services are at. So that needs to be fixed. Like like old farts like me, fine. I can deal with that. I can cope with that to a point. Young people, youngsters, young kids, young adults, they need the help ASAP. So put the money where it's needed for these people, for these kids. The mental health is far worse now compared to when my journey, my stories, whatever. But it's every day, everything for young people now. The whole battering, social media.
So what is the 3 things then? What service? Let's do with services first. What 3 services would you get involved first to do this, to help them more? Are you employing people to go into schools? Are you employing people to make lives easier for families? Are you going to find ways of, and I mean this respectful as I can respect this, is stubborn bastards that refuse to sort of open their brain. They think they're absolutely fine when they're doing more damage than good. What are the 3 services?
Do you mean somebody that's suffering, or do you mean the services?
Anyone. So services as in the NHS. How would you prefer?
Well, I know. I know a friend of mine. He works in the NHS over there, and it's like it's mental. Like you can't. They're not getting the support. They can't support everyone they need to support. Your population over there is obviously much more than Ireland. That doesn't make it right. Like here's a shit show for lots of different reasons, for the lack of support. The money's out there. The money's there for supporting people, and people that mental health isn't a priority.
Why do you think that is?
Because it's not obvious. It's not seen. It's not there. Like you can look at all the other stuff that's out there. We have this conversation. We've had this conversation 6 years ago. No one knows what mental health issue is. My mental health issues by looking at us. Oh yeah, they're all right. They're 2 lads, aren't they? Sport running. Yeah, all right. Yeah. So you look at that, unless you like. I would joke. I wouldn't even joke about it. Like the physical side of, if you say you had cancer to someone, all of a sudden you get the overwhelming support. Cancer supports. That's a different thing. But for mental health, because it's personal, a diagnosis of a physical health issue is a diagnosis of a physical health issue. A diagnosis of a mental health issue for me and you. So say you, like, I'm just using this example. So say if you had depression, I had depression. Your depression is different to my depression. Your bipolar is different to my bipolar because of our environments and our backgrounds. I'm sure people say that about cancer as well, and I get that in a different way. But there's so many levels and so many layers to uncover around that.
The one thing I'm getting from this is, and I think you're right in a set of things, it needs to be taught in schools. It needs to be taught in schools
to a point,
a certain point, because
to a point. But I think what the thing that worries me is that you can also open up too much mental health for kids and youngsters when you're opening up to things talking about anxiety, depression, like your kids, your children, and you go on and know a little about the whole different genders and different things and all that world, which I'm not going to get into because it's a very grey area. But we all suffer from. Well, we all suffer. We all have mental health. But like when you're teenagers and you're kids and you're going through growing up stuff, like I've never grown up. I'm still 53. Like it's like, do you know what I mean? Like we don't. Our journey is very personal and very different.
See, this is where me and you differ on this one, because I understand where you're coming from. I understand it. But the thing that we've done in this household is what I've done, especially with my kids, is my son is a non-verbal autistic. So he has no sense of danger. He doesn't talk. And you can't have a conversation or anything with him. You just have to go with the flow with him.
Yeah.
But with my daughter, it's different. My daughter's at the age now where she's learning different things. She's 8, she's going to be 9 in December. But one of the things that we've done that I feel like I'm very proud of as a parent with me and my wife is we're very, very open. We're very, very open. We sit down most nights and we discuss about our mental health. And then we discuss about why daddy can't do certain things, why mummy can't do certain things, why this person's doing it this way. We have a little of a conversation about why this emotion means this way, why this emotion means that way. And what I have found is, ever since we've been doing that, my daughter's absolutely amazing. And the way that she has sympathy for every child, no matter any gender or any color, no matter what, she is always will look after everyone. And I think the sympathy that she has with my brother and the mother instinct that she's had, like protection that she does for him, has done that. And I do feel like the one thing that I have found is when other people or other kids come around my son, it's very much of, why is he doing that? Why is he not normal? And we go, no, he is normal. There's just a couple of screws that are a little bit lost that he just doesn't want. So we have to have these. And I do find that in today's age, especially with society that it is now, that the way that, try not to get myself cancelled, so this could be interesting. So, and I feel like the way that society is now, where everything is the right way or the wrong way, it's always this person's fault or this society's fault. It's this way or this way. Like when I have a conversation with my daughter about other people in her class, she will ask me about why about religion, about Muslim or other religions as well. I go, yeah. She goes, they do things differently. I said, yeah, they do things differently. But the one thing that everybody in this earth and everyone around the world has in common is, if you all cut us open, we all bleed the same color. Said everyone is the same. And I feel like that today's culture in the schools, they're doing that. They're teaching everyone about everything. They're learning about other ways and other cultures. And I feel like that's what needs to be done with mental health as well. It's very much of the topic. If you're feeling sad, especially to boys, if you're feeling sad, feel sad. Be upset. But tell people why you're upset. Don't listen to the people that go, man up. Those type of things, because that's not going to help. No. That's what I think.
Mark, and I think you probably misinterpreted what I was saying.
No. I get what you're saying.
No, like my eldest has got dyspraxia and different things going on, and my youngest, they educate together as a school over here that they're both in. So they basically believe in everything and anything. It's not brought up in the whole Catholic religion schools here. So I totally get that, and I hope you didn't think I was being offensive, because I wasn't.
No, not at all. Not
You
at all.
know, we encourage our girls to just be themselves and to support others as the way that they are, and that's how. But you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to teach. That's just normality, is being kind and being nice. And my girls, they yeah, I'm a one man in a 3-woman household. I need my mental health supporting for different levels of that one as you get.
I am a one man. There's me and my son and my wife and my daughter, and because my son doesn't talk, I'm outnumbered. It's really unfair at this point.
But Mark, seriously, like that conversation about, I didn't know that about your son is non-verbal. Like, but that's I do as a job. I work. I get that, and I really totally get that. I'm so lucky to have my girls, but they got their own issues. They got their own stuff going on. But it's hard. It's really hard. It's hard. It's
absolutely. And the one thing that we have found is that now that my son is diagnosed and he's in a special needs school, very much of our lives have drastically changed for the better. Summer holidays and when we have 2 weeks off are very difficult because he's got so much energy. It's very difficult.
But the thing is here, Mark, this is an interesting one you talk about, because obviously it's my job. So over here in Ireland, 145 children with special needs haven't got a place for school at the minute. It's young, 4 or 5 year olds, and that's vile. I know, like, as a parent, my kids are tough and different things. And my youngest is just starting junior school in September, and it was even by a toss of a coin because there were too many building houses and whatever. But I know, like, I work in a respite service as a nurse for children with disabilities. Schools holidays are a long time for kids and their families. Like, it's hell. I'm not going to portray that as anything other than that. I go and do my shift the day. I do whatever happens. But for families, over here it's 3 months. It's a bit shorter, probably from memory over there.
6
3
weeks.
months. 3 months of hell over here for a lot of families. They have a bit of summer provision. They come to us for respite, probably 2 nights a month. But that's not enough. That is wrong for families. And we're talking all the degrees of disability. Okay, we're talking to, as very mild to the very, like, bless your young one, non-verbal, severe autism. I've been there. I work with those kids, and I'm not, hopefully don't think I'm being patronizing, but I get it. I really do get it, because like we provide a little bit of a break, but it's like summer's hell for parents, and parents will break eventually. Like, you're youngish compared to me.
I may look young, but I do feel like I'm like 90 in the knees.
For a lot of my kids, like, they're 18 now, they're 17, 18, and they've got medical needs, they've got nursing needs. The parents are older, and these kids live longer now. Down syndrome and different medical interventions, peg feeding, and whatever you want to call it. There's a whole array. These parents are burning out, and no one gives a shit.
No,
that's the horrible part.
Right, let's move on, and we're going to talk about our favourite thing, and we're going to talk about Reading Football Club, the club that we love. If you haven't seen our interview, then please go back and watch that one. It's on the Mark Talks Football channel. But the main questions I have for you regarding Reading Football Club is during the Dye era. We never really spoke about. We did a little bit, but it wasn't bad under when we were talking about the Dye era. Then it was bad, but it wasn't as bad.
Yes.
But I want to talk about that time, the 2.5 years, 3 years of that bell end. Couldn't think of a nicer way. Nicest way to put it.
Yeah.
The way that he ran the club, what happened over the past 2-3 years, how did that? Because then you set up the Talking Royals, and I want to get into that as well. But I want to get into, how did that affect your mental health, and what was that for you that went, we need to start the Talking Royals. We need to get more Reading fans talking with those questions?
I think the first thing that happened was like talking cherries when we did our walk from Bournemouth to Reading. Reading to Bournemouth. And I connected with Simon and a couple of guys. We did that because my mum lived in Bournemouth at the time, bless her. And then we went. I always wanted to do. I actually at the time before COVID kicked, I wanted to do something in person in Reading. Obviously, I don't live there, but I wanted to set up some sort of coffee morning, some sort of in person stuff. And then I went after COVID, after all the different stuff. I went like the Talking Cherries inspired me to do it, and I went, do you know what? I always remember the day some lad from BBC Berkshire rang me, and we had a chat about it, and all of a sudden it was up on BBC, like with like God knows how many thousands of people. Like, oh, this is great. I was going, I didn't actually realize that was going to happen, but it was like, if you can't help other people, like and like football's my escape. It's yours is, Mark. I'm sure when you life is not great and you're having a tough time and you're doing stuff. Go into a game, even though I can't go to every game. You obviously go to a lot more games than me. I watched the game on TV today and cried because we lost.
So did I, and I cried,
Yeah.
and I got very angry as well. But no, I have a season ticket, so I go to home games. So for me, my escape is football. I have wrestling, and I have gaming. Those are my three escapes. And my worry, and I think your worry as well, was by what I saw you post as well, was some people, their only escape is Reading.
Yeah, now, absolutely. And I think that's fair.
Yeah, go on.
I think that's fair comment. I think for a lot of us, like when the thought, like obviously for me being born in Reading, my granddad, and like obviously it's come back now this season. My granddad used to work for Huntley and Palmer, and like
the new home show.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still waiting for mine. Unfortunately, my order got lost, which is another story. But
fanatics.
Yeah, but like it's generational. It's about it's about our experiences, and I went, like for me, like I said to you earlier, like if I can do something to help, and it's one thing I struggle with because of my own mental health. It's like, oh look, it's about his ego. It's about, I don't have an ego. I don't have any kind of. If I can help someone, like if I like we do with Reading FC. Oh, I'm gonna have to go and my battery's going to get plug in. If I can do anything to help anything when the Reading fan base, then I'll do it. Like it's why not? No, why not? Why it doesn't matter if one person joins or 10 people join, 5 people join, 2 people join. It's about having a space to talk.
Absolutely. And before your computer dies or your phone dies, we're going to nearly end the interview here. But what we're going to be talking about is, if you are a Reading fan and you still find it difficult to talk, then the DMs are open between me, mine, and Johnny's.
And please join us on talkingroyals@gmail.com and like, look, mental health's everywhere. Like it's great talking to Mark. Mark gets it because he's been there himself. I've been there myself. Like over here my battery runs down because it's an island. I'm very lazy. But look, we all have different opinions about the football club and how we should do things and how things should happen. But the conversation around mental health needs to happen every day. It's a pleasure to host it. It's a pleasure to be part of it. I don't get any. It's stressful for me as well. I'll be honest. It's stressful for me because it means a lot to me, and I want people to join in, and because I know people out there are struggling. But what it's already done in 2 years, or just under 2 years, it's helped so many people I know. So, as I say, it's job done, and that's the beauty of it. And like this conversation with me and Mark, I mean, we may not agree on everything. We have our own experiences and our own personal views, but that's okay to happen, isn't it, Mark? I think.
Absolutely. And the one thing I have found in today's world is you do not have to agree on everything that everyone says for you to get along. I have personal beliefs or political beliefs that may be different to others. I'm not saying I support Trump before you go and shoot me. I'm not saying any of that bollocks. What I'm saying is there everyone has different beliefs. Everyone has different political alliances. I will have a conversation with someone who's a Reform person, or a Conservatives, or a Lib Dems, or a Labour, or a U Party, or anyone else in between. If they're a nice human being, I do not care. We can have a heated debate. That's all that matters. You do not need to cancel someone because of their political beliefs. All you need to do is try and educate them. If they don't want to be educated, then, and you can still be mates, that's the good thing. Right. Just before you leave, we have this absolutely batshit crazy top 10 quick fire questions.
Okay, go. My battery's got about 5 seconds left.
Right. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Okay. One thing that instantly lifts your mood?
Football.
Last show you binge watched?
And
I think he is now gone. I think the battery has now destroyed him. But that is going to be that for this interview here today. I'm going to tell him he's absolutely fine and no worries about it. But that is the insight that we were looking for on this channel. We may have some things that are a little bit different than normal, but that's absolutely fine. We have some instances that we feel like this is better than others, but that's absolutely fine. The one thing that we had a discussion about today that we all agree on is people need to talk more. And that is the main thing that we're doing. And I think he is back now with a different device. He's now in a square box. I presume this is now his phone.
I told you my battery's run out. So if you want to do the questions, go ahead.
All right, if you want to go. What your dream holiday destination?
Australia. Love it. Been there. My home.
What is a small habit that you do that helps you with your mental health?
Annoy people on social media.
Yeah, love that. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Be the new owner of Reading FC.
Like the sound of that. Favorite comfort food?
Favorite what?
Comfort food.
Curries. Girl power.
Perfect. And one piece of advice you'll give your younger self about mental health?
You're an early idiot.
Right. Perfect. Right, Johnny, I'm going to let you go. And let you go and shoot away. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. I know that we had a bit of battery power and then that went wrong, and you're on the phone and that's lagging out, but that's absolutely fine. Thank you ever so much for joining. And if you've got to go follow him, no, don't worry about it. But if you want to go and follow him, there were links to him will be down in the description down below. Thank you guys ever so much for joining me today. We will be back tomorrow. Not tomorrow. We've got lots of shorts coming up for you for the rest of this week. Next week when we are back, we have got my very good friend, one of my guys that I had at my wedding, Adam Jones, another Reading fan, who will be here with us next week. So if you haven't already, make sure to hit the like, hit the subscribe. A lot of topics today that were difficult for some people to hear. A lot of topics of discussion that people don't want to talk about, but we will. And that does not bother us whatsoever. So thank you guys ever so much for watching. And we will see you guys next week for more episodes. But with that, with love, with care. Bye.